From an enterprise standards management perspective, I think Scotty should lead it with that question, because what he's doing right now with the strategy that he's putting together is really the perfect solution from that perspective.
Thanks, Alvaro. Yeah, I think enterprise standards management's a bit of a tricky one. We have to first define that there's industry standards and then there's customer standards. So what we're really talking about is the customer standards and the evolution of those customer standards. And with standards, we're looking for reuse, reliability, consistency. What we need to be able to do is provide standards that can evolve with an organisation. So we don't want to have a burden up front of trying to say, well, we'll form a committee, we'll create standards, and we have to have everything right up front. What we want to be able to do is, as people define their process, from that we see reusable components, and those reusable components can be packaged and consumed. Reuse is about, of course, the benefit of using a piece that's already tested and validated, saves time and cost. But the real benefit comes from the long-term end customer implementation. So a customer, really, the overall cost, the installation cost is minor compared to the long-term operation and maintain. And in fact, this cost is really significant. We've even seen process plants that have been performing so poorly that they can be closed down. And it's because they haven't got the agility they need to be able to do process improvement. When you've got standards and components are consistent and known, when you put an improvement in one component, that improvement can be carried across all of the other components, and it can be done safely and reliably. That's a critical thing, right? Because then you can actually put forward a justification to optimize something, because you're getting the payback amortized across multiple things. But you need to be able to do it in a way that's safe, so that you make a change and you don't have to rely on the original author of that, right? You need to be able to consume a piece. So the challenge for us was, how do you make standards that are easy to consume by not the author, right? So standards have or a standard component has many relationships. It has relationships to the HMI in the PLC to I/O, PLC to PLC, process relationships. So we had to work out a way how to encapsulate that in an easy, reusable, consumable component. And then how could we do it in a way that would handle the enormous variability we see in industry, right? No two things are the same. So how do you make a standard when you've got that scenario? So we needed to come up with a solution for that. I think that's the challenge of a standards management system. I think that's what enterprise standards management is being able to handle the variability, to be able to handle the reuse, but to be able to have the consistency and the outcomes you want to be able to do process optimization. I think the important thing is not to try and take on too much too fast, right? You don't need to go and say, we're going to do this giant enterprise-wide thing, right? What it is, let's do it piecemeal. Let's go into a system and say, how do we fix this problem? And then how do we make, with a view to, yes, we're going to take it out further. So you don't want to do it with blinkers on, but you don't want to burden the project with the expectation of payback across every single site. So what you do is you start with a project and you look at that project and say, what can we do to bring standards to this project? Now, how do we take that onto the next project? And how do we take that onto the next project? And every time we step from project to project, we evolve and our standards grow richer and our capability grows better and our testing and validation is, of course, reused and consumed. So I think the important thing is not to try and sit back and think that we've got to form a standards committee and build a standard and work out what that means for the entire enterprise. I think we can actually do it as an evolutionary process. And I think the important thing is that our tools support that they don't lock you into having to have that definition done up front.
And I think a key differentiator that Schneider Electric provides compared to the competitors is the fact that we created a set of products in the portfolio based on two key differentiators. One is what we call layers of abstraction. So we offer tools for the controls, for the HMI, SCADA, MES, all the way up to the enterprise. So you can enforce standards on different levels, but at the same time you have a seamless integration across products from different layers, which allows you to take a big problem, several sites, several stations, and like you said, resolve it in small pieces. But when you have to integrate those small pieces, they really play well together. So we offer standards not in one particular layer, but in all the layers.
I think that's a good point. And the whole point of Prometheus as a standards management framework is that it's decoupled from every one of those products, right? It sits external to every one of the products in the stack. And that way we can change out the vendors or the products at any level within that stack. And that also means that as a standards tool, we're not in lockstep with any one product. So as one product evolves quicker than another, or as new features come out, as new technology evolves, the standards can evolve rapidly with that. It's not locked into one product or one product release. And I think that's critical. I would have missed that.
And I think the maturity of the customers play an important role on it. In other words, as Fabio was mentioning, is as they mature and get more comfortable with more of our software, they'll continue to grow and evolve, and that evolution is part of what the standards management brings to the picture.
I think another key aspect of this is ensuring delivery of best practices, because it takes, in best cases, it takes many years for engineers to get to the point of them being able to determine on their own what is a best practice. And so if you have these standards in place, you can really make it much more of an assembly than an engineering environment. And ultimately, by reducing that variability, you get consistency in the implementation and a lot more predictability in the execution of these projects and the operation of the systems.
And allow new generation of engineers leverage the experience from the previous one.
Absolutely.
It's a collaboration, yeah. And people with a particular knowledge in a particular area can define a standard component that's then reconsumed by everybody else in the organization. Yep. They didn't have to learn that thing.
Leverage
right?
best in class.
Right, so it's really critical that our systems allow that reuse in a safe way. It's pointless having reuse if you have to understand the thing intimately in order to reuse it. Right, that's the real problem. And I often use the analogy, you don't want to be given a sweater and told to knit another sweater where you've got to unpick it and re-knit it. You just want a ball of yarn, right? So you're better off actually having a ball of yarn in that case. So our aim is to actually provide you with a system that can evolve and be maintained and be safe to use by reducing that risk.
Right, avoid reinventing the wheel with sustainability.